What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Thank you for downloading the RJ Young Show podcast. Today, I want to talk a bit about Nebraska football and Ohio State football. I want to talk a little bit about what I think the top 10 teams are in college football. Get a little bit into the SP plus win totals for the SEC provided by the Bill Connolly, and I have a lot of fun with those. And we'll talk a little bit about the late, great Gale Sayre. But first, thanks for joining. Thanks for being. Thanks for you. And I want to talk a little bit about Oklahoma and Kansas State because naturally, right, you know what time it is. Kind of like Bill Simmons and the Boston Celtics. I kind of got opinions about Oklahoma all the time. But this is a much more broad issue that doesn't just relate to Oklahoma. It relates to college football. Among the things that Lincoln Riley decided to touch on yesterday was this decision by the NCAA to extend the dead period through December, which means that we would have a dead period that has lasted since March through December, which means that nobody would be allowed to take an official visit since March 11th through December. It also means that the all-important evaluation period and contact period is chucked out the window. By way of illustration, Riley took pains to say, like last week, which is a bye week for him, in which he had a home game, so they didn't have a lot to get prepared for in the way of traveling on the road, was wildly weird to him because he did not have that much to do. He didn't have that much to do because he's usually into hosting kids on campus, preparing to host kids on campus, and his 10 assistants are out and about the country getting to know and watching a high school talent from 2021 on up through 2022, 2023, 2024, and in some cases, 2025. This is the time for which not only do you solidify your recruiting class, but you are making inroads into next year's recruiting class. Even now, we're talking about Luther Bond, who is one of the best wide receivers in the country, is trying to whittle his list of suitors. But Dennis Simmons can't go see him because it is impermissible for Dennis Simmons to go see him. It's also at a time when Oklahoma is in a fierce battle for a number of top prospects, among them wide receiver Emeka Egbuka, who wants to take a visit to Oklahoma, but now we know will not get to take an official visit during the college football season. Dabo Swinney made himself heard about this last week, and in making himself heard, I couldn't see anything wrong with what he's saying, which is to say, wait a second, we can have fans in the stands, socially distanced, wearing masks, but we can have fans in the stands. We can have media at games. We can have people for which it takes to put these games on television at the games. And we can create an environment, we think, that takes care of more than 100 people and has daily testing in some cases, 3-day-a-week testing in other cases, to provide additional information about who has it and who doesn't, but we can't invite kids and their families to this, to which I understand the argument that the NCAA is giving, which is one that I support, but one that unravels very quickly once you start playing football, and it's this. You can't actually have a bunch of people around and expect the virus to stop. And you can't operate in a place where you just say the virus is going to be around. I don't accept that. As a matter of fact, I made the observation yesterday that Notre Dame had to postpone its game against Wake Forest this weekend because they had 7 positive tests and then they lost a bunch of kids due to contact tracing. They didn't even practice yesterday. Notre Dame has a $13.8 billion endowment. And if they can't afford to take care of their players, then how the hell else can anybody else afford to take care of their players? Now, different regions have different laws and different quarantine and procedures for how to go about this, and I understand that. But we all know that Notre Dame is one of the richest universities in the country and one of the most well-to-do football programs, if not storied, in the country. To which Joel Klatt decided to ask an honest question, for which I thought I gave an honest answer about, do I think that the players on campus are going to get better care at home than on campus, or they're going to be able to get these hard exams that they might need at home and on campus. To which I said, this is not about whether or not they're going to get that care. It's about stopping the spread of the virus. And for the people that say that you can't stop the spread of the virus, I would also say, have you looked around the rest of the world? They got it pretty well under control in Germany, in South Korea, in New Zealand, in large part because they were doing what we were doing from March to about May, in which we decided not to see each other. We cut off contact with each other. It sucked. It would have continued to suck if we did it for as long as we needed to do it, which probably would have been through June or July, and then start back up. But nobody wanted to wait that long because we live in a capitalistic society where the money has to turn over, and if the money doesn't turn over, we got a world of hurt. And people are saying, I would rather live in this world of hurt than have the money turn off. So now that the money's back on, people are trying to tell me with a straight face that we live in an age where the virus is going to be. They're going to get the virus one way or another. That's not true. It's about self-discipline. The same individualism that has you thinking that you need to go to work is the same individualism that could have kept you safe and stopped the spread of the virus simply by making the decision that the collective is more important than the individual, and we didn't do that. So at the bottom of my assertion that if Notre Dame can't take care of the kids, how can we take care of ourselves, is at the bottom of this conversation around player safety, player advocacy, and at the bottom of that is the health and safety of the country. Because I can lead you down a rabbit hole very quickly that shows, are you picking yourself or are you picking them? You can pick both. You need the collective and the group. And if we continue on with football, we're going to continue seeing the postponement of games. To date, we've had 29 games played. We've had 18 cancellations, with this morning seeing UNT and Houston called off. This after Baylor and Houston was called off. We're going to keep seeing this because the virus is not going anywhere because we refused to stop congregating. And if you are going to have football, you have to have people congregating in the hundreds. On the other hand, for the dead period, you're looking at this going, well, since we're having the people that are congregating in the hundreds, why not just have more congregate? Because it's unsafe. It's not about whether or not you're going to get infected. It's not even about whether or not you're asymptomatic. It's that you could pass that virus to at-risk populations. People with asthma, people with heart and lung conditions, people who cannot afford to contract this virus. And now news from the Washington Post earlier today says the damn thing is mutating. It's getting to understand what we're doing to try to combat it, and it's growing stronger. That is why it's called a novel coronavirus, because it's new. I don't feel safe doing this stuff, but as long as we're going to be talking football and people are going to play football, I'm going to talk about football.